Transforming Education, a Claretian conversation in preparation for the United Nations Summit of the Future on September 2024. Moderator Paulson Veluyanor, Director Sannyasa India. Special thanks to Pedro Belderrame, General Prefect of Apostolate.
Panelists Alwyn Mendoz, Northeast India, ASCLA. Felix Martinez, East Asia, ASCLA. Mauricio Ulep. Joel Gallardo, ASCLA. Salustiano Oyono. Padre Chifre, ASLA. Kenneth Opara Semefomeo, Nigeria East, ACLA. Marita Lineker, San Jose del Sur, MICLA. Clodo Bastos, Brazil, MICLA. Enrique Aponte, Colombia, Ecuador, MICLA. Miguel Angel Velasco, Santiago. Eclas, Yamis Castro, Fatima, Eclas.
Thanks to all the observers' participation during this conversation. Interpretation was provided by Alex Gaitan, SOMI USA Canada. This conversation is organized by the Claretian team at the United Nations, New York. Rohan Dominic and Henry Ramirez.
We have 10 participants for this conversation, but we also have other Claretians who have logged on in order to listen to the conversation. So my request to those who have logged on as observers, you all would be observers. You will not be participating in the conversations, but you would be listening and then profiting from these conversations. Since we have very limited time, I request each participant in the conversation to be as brief and to the point as possible. Let's begin with self-introduction. I invite all the participants to briefly introduce themselves. Just your name, the major organism, and the current responsibility you have. That's it. Let's begin. By the way, I'm Paulson. Father Rohan already introduced that I belong to the Sannyasa Institute of Consecrated Life. Glad to be here to facilitate this conversation. Come on, the participants, please go ahead.
I am Susai Manikam from the province of Chennai. I am just an observer. I am right now working in one of our schools in Madurai. Thank you.
Thank you, Susai.
Thank you, Paulson. Thank you.
I'm James Castro. I am currently assigned in Fatima province, working in Las Palmas, Claret Coleo, Las Palmas.
Welcome, James.
So I am Miguel Angel Velasco. So I'm working in, I am a member of Santiago province, and I am working as a part of, something like a team and board for schooling, for schools in our province. So in charge of pastoral and identity area. So living in Madrid.
Thank you, Father Miguel Angel.
Buen día, yo soy Enrique Aponte, el prefecto apostolado de la provincia de Colombia Oriental y Ecuador, y también animando algunos de los colegios que se encuentran aquí en Ecuador. Gracias.
Gracias, Enrique. Bienvenidos.
Buenos días. Yo soy María Alejandra Lineker, pero me dicen Marita. Vivo en Argentina, en la ciudad de Bahía Blanca. Trabajo como laica con los misioneros claretianos hace muchos años y coordino actualmente el equipo provincial de educación de nuestra provincia San José del Sur en los colegios, en los 10 colegios que tenemos en Argentina, en Chile y en Uruguay. Y un gusto para mí participar Marita. De este encuentro.
¿Quién más?
Buen día, nosotros somos del Brasil, claretianos del Brasil. Eu sou Cláudio, diretor do Colégio de São Paulo. Está comigo André, que é o vice-diretor de acá de nossa escola, ¿sí? E temos 9 colégios acá em Brasil. Gracias.
Gracias, Claudio.
Hello, I'm Mauricio Ulet. of the Gallardo province. I'm the director of Claret School of Quezon City, and at the same time, the chair of the Commission on Claretian Education here, and at the same time, working with the Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines.
Thank you, Mauritius. Elect.
Hello, everyone. I'm Father Christian from Indonesia, and now I'm currently appointed as the prefect of apostolate of the independent delegation of Indonesia and Timor-Leste.
Thank you, Christian.
Hello, everyone. I am Father Michael Raja from Independent Delegation of Kolkata and presently working in one of the schools in West Bengal in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Hello, please, only the panelists introduce yourselves. Only the panelists.
Okay.
I am, it's okay. Llamo Félix Martínez de la delegación de Oriental de Asia. Ahora estoy viviendo en Osaka, en Japón. Y a ver, soy el coordinador de los dos parvularios que tenemos en la congregación aquí y director de uno de ellos.
Gracias, Padre Felix. Now, Kenneth and Alvin.
Hello.
And Salustiano, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alvin from the province of Northeast India. I'm currently working at St. Claret College 0 in Arunachal Pradesh, which is a state in India. I'm working at our degree college here as principal.
Thank you, Alvin. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Father Kenneth of the West Delegation, Nigeria. I'm currently working in one of the schools of the delegation, precisely Claret Secondary School, Kaba, Nigeria.
Thank you, Kenneth, and welcome. And finally, Salustiano. Is he here? Rohan, is Salustiano in?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Salustiano.
Salustiano, your microphone is turned off. You need to turn it on.
Hello.
Hi.
¿Me escuchan ahora?
Yes, we can hear you. Sí.
No sé si me escuchan. Buenas.
Salustiano.
No sé si me escuchan.
Okay, I think there's
Soy Salustiano de
Okay, Salustiano, we'll introduce you for you. Salustiano Oyano.
Decía, soy de la delegación independiente Pablo Cifré. Soy el prefecto de apostolado. Y estoy coordinando los colegios de Guinea Ecuatorial y de Gabón.
Okay, gracias, Salustiano. Thank you, everybody. Let's go on. I hope we have the names of everybody. We move on to the first round of conversations. I believe all the participants have the list of questions already given to you. So the first round, this is the question that the education brief by the UN Secretary General has identified two crises: the crisis of equity and the crisis of relevance in education. So perhaps the participants can share very briefly as to how intense these crises are in your respective countries. Yeah? And how do they play out? A sort of a brief status report as to this crisis of equity and crisis of relevance. Which crisis is more serious in your place? How is it playing out? Very briefly. Anyone can begin? Perhaps each person can take roughly 2 to 2.5 minutes to give us a brief. Go ahead.
Allow me to start.
Would you like to start? Who?
Let me start. In the Philippines, in terms of equity, we have a problem with student performance. As we all know, in the Philippines, the reading proficiency in math, science, many of our students are lagging behind international student assessment, according to the latest PISA results. And even in the Southeast Asia, Filipino students are ranking very low in terms of performance. And the rate of the student dropping out of basic education schools is high, especially for young girls with identified causes like family matters, early marriage, financial concerns, and lack of personal interest. There is a huge disparity of basic education completion rate between social classes, so the poorest could not even complete primary or elementary levels. And access to quality education is a problem due to many other factors in the Philippines: calamities, poor facilities and learning resources, poor teacher quality, insurgency, poor governance in the Department of Education, graft and corruption, among others. Early child care development is not given importance, hence malnutrition causes stunting among learners. And on relevance, leadership and governance in the Department of Education forget the relevance of education. So we have misaligned programs and activities, also poor teacher quality and policy on student promotion, which is no student left behind, disregards quality delivery of instruction and quality learning. Students may have graduated but not work ready due to lack of basic skills, and quality assurance mechanisms are not in place in most schools. Even teacher supervision is a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mauricio. Thanks for that brief statement. Somebody else? Perhaps I'll call upon. Can we hear from Marita? Okay. Go ahead, go ahead.
Ya que estamos en Asia, pues continuamos por aquí, desde Japón.
Está bien.
En cuanto a equidad, pienso que no hay grandes problemas aquí en Japón, pero en cuanto a relevancia, sí. O sea, hasta hace poco el dinero que se dedicaba a educación en este país era bajísimo, pero últimamente, de 5 o 6 años para acá, cada año está aumentando y parece que va a seguir aumentando un poquito más todavía. En ese sentido, en fin, hay un poco de esperanza, ¿no? Porque eso influye en la educación a todos los niveles, ¿no? En fin, de momento así estamos.
Muy bien. Gracias. So in Japan, equity is not much of a problem, but relevance is a problem, right? So since we are, as Felix suggested, we can focus on continent-wise. So somebody else from the Philippines or any other country, perhaps the Northeast, Father Alvin?
Yeah. So equity comes as a problem. Actually, in India, for a long time now, equity has been one of the problems. Accessibility of education has been a problem for many people, but of late, the government has come up with several policies to address this issue. When we speak of remote areas and wherein accessibility is a question, the government has been investing a lot in education. The new education policy thinks of, highlights certain areas wherein the problem of equity would be addressed, and also the crisis of relevance as well. So of late, if we see the gross enrollment ratio in be it in primary education or even in higher education, it has been on the rise. So the government is taking quite many steps in order to address this crisis in education. I can go a bit more in detail about the highlights of the new education policy of 2023. which in paper at least tries to address these two crises. Schooling to start at the age of 3 with regard to early childhood care and education. They have tried to include mother tongue as a medium of instruction, which is very important in a scenario like that of India. We have a lot of diversity from north to south, east to west. And when it comes to higher education, there's so many regulatory bodies that are trying to bring it under one or a few regulatory bodies which will monitor higher education. In addition, we can see common access at all school level education. Focus is to bring universal access to school education and ensure holistic development of students right from the beginning. Well, while I'm stating this, these are all on paper. How far these will be implemented is a big question mark. And when it comes to relevance, one of the things that is of primary focus, at least for me, I'm in higher education, is how to make the education that we are imparting meaningful, and also how to make the students employable, industry ready, to set up industry academia interface. These are some of the guidelines which have been meticulously laid down in the new education policy 2023. So we are doing a bit in this direction to resolve this crisis.
Okay, thank you, Alvin. Let's move on to, we have covered Asia, let's move on to Africa. We have 2 members from Africa. Can you give us a brief, please?
Yeah, my name is Kenneth once again.
Kenneth,
Okay.
Kenneth, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, the education for the problem of equity and relevance is very much a big problem for us here. The government over the years has actually come up with policies that are supposed to take care of a good number of the problems we have with regard to education. On paper, these policies are very wonderful, but when it comes to implementation, you find out that they are very far-fetched from what we see them advertised on the television. So there's always this deception that goes with the whole politicization of education in a way. Nigeria is a very big country, and cannot lay claims that I know everything that happens in all parts of the country. Because in some particular states, the governors are doing well. They are doing better than in some others. With regard to equity, some parts of Nigeria, there's less access or low access to education. And some of these areas are where you have crisis-driven areas and places where you have the terrorists taking charge of those places. But in the southeastern part of the country, where you have minimal exposure to crisis, you see that there's access to education in those places. However, this access to this education comes with its own caveats. Many a time, this poorly equipped, the structures are in a dilapidated mode, the teachers are lacking, and sometimes when you have some of these schools in some of these particular states, you find out that it is primarily out of community effort. Now, there's also another part of it, the private sector partnership, which has led to the emergence of many schools. But these schools are just there, not truly to empower and educate the masses, but to make money. And because they are there to make money, they are only business oriented. They are interested in, let these people pass, how much are we ready to get? And it has nothing to do with the transformative part of the individual. When it comes to the question of relevance, here in Nigeria, we are still operating the system that we got from the colonial masters. And we have not been able to move beyond that system, preparing people to serve and service the system, and not for innovation, for creativity, and for transformation. And so the emphasis is mainly on theories and not practical. And so we have professors who are only but professors in theory. Professors there wrote certified, but there is no transformation. So these are some of the challenges we have with regard to relevance and then accessibility to education.
So Kenneth, between equity and relevance, which is your greater crisis?
Both of them are.
Okay.
But I think relevance has more, it's stronger than the issue of access, because the government in the past have actually worked hard to make sure that education is accessible and is accessible to as many as possible. And it doesn't affect gender, whether you are a male or a female, the access to education is available to all, except in areas that is Muslim dominated, where the religion prevents the female child to have access to education. But outside, the government made it open to everyone.
Thank you, Kenneth, for that input. Can we hear from?
Okay, yeah, also from Nigeria in Africa.
Hello.
Yeah, I want also to add to what Father Ken said. Two of us are from Africa here. So this is Father Tese, Emmanuel, Ubi, contributing from Lagos, Nigeria. For us here, on the question of relevance and equity, I would say that interwoven, as Father Ken, my brother, has just said, reporting or contributing from central part of Nigeria, while I'm chatting from the western part of Nigeria in Lagos. For me here, there are many challenges facing the educational sector in Nigeria, both on the equity and relevance level, and they're interwoven. So as Father Ken said, some of them just appear on paperwork, but practically some of them are not done well. Now, based on funding, not all of them are well funded, or the education sector in Nigeria, not every part of the sector are well funded, and you could see massive corruption, inadequate infrastructural facilities, shortage of academic staff, strike actions, brain drain, poor research work, weak administrators, and insecurity. If I'm going to explain on all of these factors I've mentioned here now, it will take us a whole lot. But as my brother Kenneth has said, I would like us to really see that this is what is challenging our education here in Nigeria, especially in Lagos here. Father Ken said the relevance for me is also very, very important. And one question I always continue to ask is that the bias some of us have over the years about the educational sector in Nigeria, which our colonial masters handed over to us, is a huge problem. Yes.
Emmanuel,
yes.
Yeah, we get the point. We shall move on because basically, we are focusing on we would love to hear from everybody, but this conversation is limited to the official participants of the panel, and others are actually, listeners. So we shall limit to for want of time. There are 34 people actually listening to us. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
Yeah, we need to move on. Shall I call upon Salustiano for some input?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Sí. Desde nuestro contexto de la delegación de Padre Chiffré, somos dos países, Gabón y Guinea Ecuatorial. Hay que decir que en nuestro contexto se ha trabajado mucho desde nuestros países el acceso de los niños desde la infancia, tierna edad, 3, 4 años, 5, para la escolarización. En esto nuestros gobiernos han favorecido mucho este acceso de los niños. Es más, esto se encuentra en las constituciones de nuestros dos países. Pero el problema más grande que tenemos en nuestros dos países ahora, Guinea Ecuatorial y Gabón, es que la falta de profesores y maestros cualificados. Es decir, en las zonas rurales todavía se encuentra un gran vacío de maestros, porque la mayoría de los maestros que salen en los centros de pedagogía se concentran en las grandes ciudades y no quieren ir a las zonas rurales. Otro problema, otra dificultad en la que nos encontramos en nuestros países es que hay poco interés, si se puede decir así, poco interés en la formación técnica y profesional. Entonces, nosotros que estamos trabajando en esta cuestión educativa, los religiosos, la Iglesia está insistiendo mucho en como una transición del sistema educativo de nuestros dos países. Es decir, lo de formar más cuadros y los alumnos en las cuestiones técnicas y profesionales. Lo vemos mucho cuando hemos tenido un prolífero en nuestros países, se ha tenido que traer mano de obra de otros países, porque hay pocos guineanos y gaboneses formados profesionalmente y en las técnicas, y esto hace que haya un gran banco de jóvenes sin trabajo, jóvenes que se dedican a la delincuencia. Sí.
We need to wind up for just 2 minutes. Thank you very much for your input. Let us move on to Latin America, America Latina. From Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, anybody? Please.
Bueno,
Very brief, 2 minutes. Yeah, please.
Parto de nuestra provincia, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay. También escuchaba a Salustiano recién y esta coincidencia en torno a que tenemos pocos docentes, ¿no? Hay pocas personas con este interés de dedicarse a la educación, ¿no? Eso sobre todo también en mi país. Cuesta encontrar docentes titulados para los niveles de enseñanza. Claramente hay una crisis de equidad, una inversión insuficiente y desigual en torno a la educación y una gran brecha que se genera entre las escuelas de educación pública y de educación privada. Sumado a esto también hay una polarización en torno a lo político. Ahí de repente en nuestro país hay un interés muy marcado en lo financiero y la educación pasa a quedar a un costado, ¿no? Eso estamos viviendo hoy. Hoy en día, habiendo iniciado las clases en Argentina la semana pasada en la mayoría de las provincias, hoy es un día de paro nacional. Hay docentes luchando por una suba en su escala salarial, un docente que de repente que recién se inicia está cobrando como salario alrededor de $300 mensuales, ¿sí? Bueno, toda esta situación incide y hace que las desigualdades educativas sean muy visibles, ¿no? Y hay condiciones muy diversas y antagónicas entre una escuela de gestión pública y una escuela de gestión privada. Hay muchas diferencias, así que más o menos esto para compartirles.
Gracias, Marita. Enrique.
Sí, muy buenos días nuevamente para todos. Frente a la equidad y a la pertinencia, tanto en Colombia como en Ecuador, a la luz de la experiencia que tenemos en los 6 centros educativos, pues tenemos que reconocer que las crisis por responder a los aprendizajes de las personas se acentúan, la poca inversión que se da a la educación, la desigualdad, la pobreza, la inseguridad, el problema que tenemos del narcotráfico, la corrupción a nivel político, los grupos armados, ¿verdad? Que afectan sin duda el proceso y el camino que en educación se quiere construir y que van generando una brecha enorme de desigualdad. En el caso de Ecuador, por ejemplo, están implementando un nuevo currículo en donde buscan plantearlo desde 5 enfoques. Naturalmente, en el papel tratan de responder a muchas de las exigencias que leíamos de los documentos de la ONU, pero que en la realidad pues no se hace efectivo, aunque hablan de promover una educación inclusiva, un mejoramiento de aprendizajes, formación docente, la implementación de una verdadera transformación digital, el financiamiento de la educación, etcétera, eso todavía no se ve con precisión. Se han construido megacolegios tanto en Colombia como en Ecuador para tratar de fortalecer el proceso educativo, pero los gobiernos de turnos los abandonan, no brindan las capacidades ni los recursos necesarios. Hay un problema creciente en cuanto a la formación docente, no solo porque faltan docentes, sino porque muchos de los que están no tienen la suficiente formación y preparación para brindar un proceso de enseñanza-aprendizaje en los estudiantes, lo que dificulta naturalmente el camino, la organización y el desarrollo institucional. Y las mismas políticas de Estado que naturalmente afectan la labor educativa, el desempeño y naturalmente, como lo han ido mencionando, hay una brecha grande entre la educación pública y la educación privada, ¿no? Y nosotros nos vamos moviendo en medio de esa realidad porque también estamos en sectores populares que naturalmente denotan algún tipo de dificultad en los procesos y en todo lo que se tiene a nivel general.
Gracias, gracias, Enrique. Thank you. Let's move on to Europe. We have Velasco and James Castro.
Nosotros,
Very brief.
perdón.
Sorry? Brasil. Sorry, sorry, Brasil. Por favor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pedimos desculpa de falar em portunhol. Há uma grande coincidência de realidade política entre nós outros da América Latina. Há uma disparidade grande entre a educação pública e a educação privada. E esta foi agravada pela pandemia. Sim? Outros desafios que temos muito presentes são a polarização exacerbada política, o desmatamento da Amazônia, os desafios climáticos impactam bastante a educação no Brasil. Por hora isto, sim? Gracias.
Thank you. Gracias, gracias. Now let's move on to Europe. Miguel Angel and James Castro, would you like to add something?
Okay. Okay. In English, I prepared in English.
Fine. Go ahead.
Yes, and also after in Spanish. So everything could be improved. Okay.
Because I think they are using translator system.
Okay. Very good. So everything could be improved, but in Spain, equity is not a dramatic, important problem. And education is always at the center of public debate. Education is relevant in our society, and it is transforming continuously. Perhaps it should be better to keep education more in the shadow and more in the hands of real experts, not politicians. This is a real problem in Spain with education. So, si quieres, okay, everything is translated? Okay, that's right.
I hope so. I hope they're using the interpreter system. James, from your experience there in Spain,
from Fatima province, but in English. Okay, so I would like to focus on the crisis of the relevance. I have been able to have an exposure in the Philippines as school director and now in Spain. I see that we talk so much of lifelong learning, but in reality, it is not being practiced yet. Inside the classroom, the focus is still on the content, more on the content. And after observing in Spain for 3 years, I have seen also that in education inside the classroom, there's no much teaching about values. Subjects, there is no connection to life. It directly talks about more on the content, but relating it to our Christian values and to competency, it's not very clear. And also, I see that there is in Portugal, for example, just like in Argentina, there is also crisis in teachers. No one, as of now, there are very few students enrolling in education. So less teachers. So we are there is a crisis of teachers in Portugal. And lastly, is the mismatch of what is the government asking and what we want. For example, we want to teach lifelong learning. We want them to learn more the skills and competency. Yet what is being required by the government in the exam is more on the content, more on the facts rather than on the skills to learn. So it doesn't match together. Okay,
so
that's
thank you
it.
very much. Thank you. We have heard from everybody, all the participants. So if I were to summarize, I would say, as I was listening, we have issues of equity in some countries, issues of relevance, but as it stands out, I believe relevance is more of a problem, more of a crisis for most of our, schools and places that we come from. Also added to it are crisis of teachers, crisis of lifelong learning, etc., and the problems of corruption, etc. Thank you for this input. Let's move on to the next round. Well, we have only some 40 minutes remaining, so I again request you to be as brief as possible and to the point. Now, in this round, we are looking at the 7 recommendations made by the Secretary General. So we know these are the crises we have. So the Secretary General has proposed 7 recommendations. And in 2020, Pope Francis made 7 propositions, 7 commitments that we, Catholics, very especially Christians, should commit themselves to. We also have 25 demands made by the youth. Yeah. So putting all these things together, I'm sure you have read through all these. Which recommendation or proposition would be the most necessary one for your context? So you can just specify the proposition or the recommendation, just mention it without much explanation. Go ahead, please. Perhaps we can start in the reverse. We can start from Europe. So Miguel Angel or James Castro, would you like to say which recommendation applies to you most? Either from Pope Francis or from Secretary Generals.
Okay, so I have chosen 4 from our common agenda to increase the G point, to increase consciousness about the need for international cooperation to achieve Goal 4, and the second one, to design curricula and pedagogies relevant for today and tomorrow, and from Global Compact, so to make human person the center of every educational program, to foster the distinctiveness and their capacity for relationship with others, and finally, to find new ways to understand economy, politics, growth, and progress that can truly stand at the service of the human person and the entire human family within the context of an integral ecology.
That comes from the Pope's recommendations.
Yep. Yeah. From our common agenda and from Global Compact Education.
Fine. Thank you very much. James, you have something to add?
I just want to focus on the pedagogy, to be able to change the pedagogy that we have, because it will affect the way of teaching the lifelong learning. I will focus on that, on retraining all the teachers, great training of the teachers.
Retraining of the teachers. Great, thank you. Let's move on to Latin America. Claudio, what would be your recommendations most relevant for your country? Go ahead, please. Hello?
Perdão. Sim, la transformação e educação é o item 3 da declaração. Sim? Para nós outros, este item 3 da declaração é o que resume nossas necessidades acá em Brasil. Entendemos assim. Você pode repetir?
¿Hay más? No.
No.
Ok, gracias. Colombia, Enrique.
Desde aquí, entonces, nos parece importante que se pueda trabajar del Pacto Global, naturalmente, pues la persona en el centro de la educación, y allí hablamos de la formación docente. Otro elemento es la creación de currículos propios que no dependan de las políticas internacionales y den respuesta a las realidades de cada lugar en cada centro educativo. Y naturalmente la cooperación internacional para poder mejorar y ayudar a nivel general el proceso de la equidad y la pertinencia.
Gracias, Enrique. Marita. Marita.
Ahí está.
Sí.
Creo que para transformar la educación tenemos que transformar la enseñanza, hacer foco en los estudiantes para que puedan aprender a aprender, aprender a vivir juntos, aprender a hacer, ¿no? Hacer foco también en la profesionalización de nuestros educadores para que verdaderamente sean agentes de cambio, ¿sí? Que puedan profesionalizarse. También del pacto tomo algo que me parece primordial, que es la escucha a las jóvenes generaciones, ¿no? Dar este lugar y este protagonismo a los jóvenes, apoyarnos en su liderazgo, rescatar sus aportes, su mirada, y trabajar mucho por una educación inclusiva y de calidad que estimule la formación de un pensamiento crítico y que forme competencias para el futuro.
Gracias, muchas gracias. That's it, right? Colombia, Brazil, Argentina. Let's move on to Africa. Salustiano and Kenneth, would you like to contribute, please?
Sí, desde aquí en África hemos trabajado ya el Pacto Educativo Africano a partir del Pacto Educativo Global y nosotros estamos insistiendo en el hecho de que desde África se puedan empezar a crear escuelas madres, escuelas en el sentido de la familia. Nos damos cuenta que África, que tiene el sentido de familia, se está destruyendo poco a poco este gran valor que tenemos en África, la familia. Que las escuelas vuelvan a constituirse como familia. Toda la sociedad esté concernida en transmitir los valores culturales. Es decir, hay grandes valores culturales, grandes referentes como los abuelos que nos contaban los cuentos. Todas estas cosas se están perdiendo. Entonces, recuperar estos valores del contexto africano para introducirlos en los sistemas educativos, sin tener que depender mucho de los sistemas occidentales.
Okay. Muchas gracias, Salustiano. Kenneth? Hi, Kenneth. Hi, Kenneth. Come on.
Well, from Nigeria, I believe that to transform education in Nigeria, that we have to make the curriculum and the pedagogies relevant, both for today and tomorrow. Because as it stands in Nigeria, it is only presently servicing already existing structures. It is not futuristic. So we have to make the curriculum relevant. And also we have to reposition the role of teachers as creative guides and facilitators in the learning process. It means they have to be retrained because we have a lot of unskilled people in the classes teaching, people who are not well prepared for this task. I have some of them here in the school here, and I have to keep running seminars and programs to update them. But within the context that the school is situated, it is difficult to get those who are really trained in this very area. And this is the common thing we have in many parts of Nigeria. In some areas,
you mean to say about retraining of the teachers. From the list that Pope Francis gave, do you have anything that stands out for Africa, for Nigerian specifically?
I'm actually drawing my inference from that of the United Secretary General.
Fine. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. Let's move.
Is just one more, please. Sorry. Here, education is not, the investment in education is very poor here. So even the government on paper, they tell you that they are doing this, but the truth is that every day we are saddled with the sad story of people who, teachers going on strike because education is not well funded. And that would lead to the emergence of the private schools that see education as a business instead of a way of transforming the society. So thank you.
You're actually highlighting the recommendation number 6 and 7 from the Secretary General of the United Nations. I believe it's very important for other places as well, the government investing more into education. That's fine, because we see that when some crisis happens like COVID and other things, the first thing they do is take out from education, the investment, because of, we don't think in terms of long-term purpose. Let's listen to the members from Asia now. Mauricio?
In the Philippines, what we have to have is first curriculum review to integrate values and formation among the young, and also teacher education and formation. Partnership with family is also important because we know that most of the families now in the Philippines are in crisis. And also student leadership, and most importantly, in our context in the Philippines being an archipelago, we have to safeguard Mother Earth, our common home.
For Francis, we're very happy to hear that. Okay, let's move on to Felix from Japan.
Ok, yo diría que aquí en Japón sería el tercero, lo de hacer currículos o pedagogías relevantes para hoy y mañana, para el futuro. Pero porque, bueno, habría que entenderlo, porque ahora mismo ya está puesto así, pero es para la economía de hoy y la economía del futuro, no para las personas. O sea, el contenido de la educación está demasiado enfocada a una mejora económica o financiera, etcétera, y no a la formación de personas, de seres humanos. Ese es yo creo que ahora mismo un fallo, y cada vez se está haciendo peor o más fuerte en este sentido, ¿no?
¿Hay algo de las sugerencias de Papa Francisco?
Sí, evidente. O sea, no se trata de transmitir conocimiento, sino de crear personas, ¿no? O de educar personas.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Alvin?
Yeah, just to mention that based on the 3 documents, all the recommendations and propositions, the demands they hold good for India as well. But I'd like to focus more on investing more equitably and more efficiently in education. That's taken from our common agenda policy briefing. The same is highlighted again in the SG Vision statement on transforming education, and also Youth Declaration in point 22 also mentions the same. I mean, this is in the backdrop of our country investing about 2.9% of the country's GDP on education, while in the US it's about 6.4. It was 6.4 in 2020. I mean, it has seen an increase. So I think investing more equitably and more efficiently in education, that would be one of the propositions that would hold good. And in addition to that, I think harnessing digital tools and resources to expand access, improve learning, and increase capacities to navigate the future, that would be quite relevant in the present scenario. Well, of course, we have to be a bit more careful when we engage with AI in education.
Anything from the list of Pope Francis?
Sorry?
Anything from the list of Pope Francis that applies to your context?
In Pope Francis, in the global compact education, that actually educational and technological times, he has spoken something with regard to use of digital tools. That's what I found these two to be correlating to each other.
Fine. Thank you very much.
And one more, making curricula and pedagogy is relevant for today and tomorrow. That's that would be applicable for the present context in India.
Thank you. Did I leave out anybody? I hope not. Great. So in this round, we have listened to some of the urgent concerns that we have, or rather the recommendations or suggestions that apply to our living context. I believe there is a convergence of opinions here with regards the relevance of the pedagogy, revising the pedagogy so as to make it a lifelong learning. And I believe this retraining of the teachers also came up very strongly. That's also very important. And then more investment. I was actually thinking that nobody mentioned the digital tools, but Alvin mentioned digital tools, but nobody else mentioned digital tools. I believe it's because we need to get the fundamentals right. Yeah, the basic essentials in education before we can bring in all these technological innovations. So there is a lot, I think, that we need to do at the basic foundational essential levels. So that helps us to reflect further. Thank you very much for the contribution. Let's move on to round 3. So in crafting concrete proposals for your government and educators to facilitate transformative education, what initiatives or strategies do you think are essential? So you can speak in terms of certain initiatives needed or the strategies, very briefly, because it's pretty much similar to the recommendation that have been already made. Perhaps we can talk in terms of continents. So not everybody, but maybe a representative from each continent can share. Okay. So let us start with. Yes.
When you say government, what do you refer to the government? To the provincial government or to the?
No, we are referring to the state government because we are all state.
Just to clarify.
Yeah. To the political government.
Thank you.
And the educators. We are all members of various educational bodies. So what would be your most important recommendations with regard to some innovations? So let us go continent-wise, as I had already informed you. So let's start with Africa. One of you can speak for just we have 2 members from Africa. Kenneth or Salustiano, please share some ideas very briefly.
Okay, I beg to say something on this, and my take on this is simple. Education should be removed from the hands of politicians and placed in the hands of real educators, not politicians. They don't know what happens in the educational sector. They are not interested. Their children are abroad studying.
Yes.
So they don't feel the pains of those who are.
Got it. What else would be? Is there any other recommendation for any initiative or strategy? Anything else to add? So this is the
Are you
main.
still referring to me or to him?
No, any one of you
Should
can
I
speak.
go on?
You can. Or if
well, for me, the emphasis should be on.
Salustiano, would you like to add anything?
Para una recomendación para nuestros políticos, yo pienso que nuestros políticos tienen que tomar más en serio la cuestión educativa. A veces parece que no les interesa la educación, pero nosotros sabemos desde la Iglesia, y ellos también lo saben, que la educación es el futuro. A veces da la impresión que prefieren tener a la población, a la juventud en ignorancia para que sus actuaciones o sus políticas no sean criticadas, ¿no? Entonces parece que prefieren mantener la población en ignorancia. Por eso la inversión en los estados nuestros parecen deficientes en la cuestión educativa.
Okay. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Let's move on to Latin America. Any one of you would like to make one or two suggestions, or rather the suggestions you would like to make to the government and the educators' bodies? Anybody? And others can add on. Marita, Enrique, or Claudio, one of you.
Bueno.
Apenas ressaltar um ponto depois creio que Marita e Henrique puedan complementar. Sugerimos que haya una reforma de ensino para garantizar la diminuição da igualdade e para garantizar que os niños puedan ter acesso à escola, que promovam mudanças estruturais para garantir a alfabetização e a contenção da evasão escolar. E acá em Brasil, de modo particular, uma educação inclusiva que abranja todos os pueblos originários, indígenas, ribeirinhos, quilombolas, para que assim podamos garantizar o cuidado com o clima, que está muito sério para nós. Gracias.
Gracias. Anybody would like to add, Enrique or Marita?
De mi parte, sí, de mi parte yo haría hincapié también en políticas educativas que impulsen un currículum y una enseñanza para la vida, donde, bueno, se cuide todo esto que dice Claudio, se ponga énfasis en una pedagogía del cuidado, en la promoción también de entornos seguros de aprendizaje. Pondría también la mirada en los docentes, en la profesionalización y en la jerarquización de ese rol tan importante en los aprendizajes, ¿no? Y los impulsaría a conformar comunidades de aprendizaje, de estudio, de capacitación, de compartir buenas prácticas para que puedan sumarse también otros y mejorar la calidad de nuestra educación.
Gracias. Okay, Enrique, anything to add?
Te agregaría un poco lo que es la inversión, que los gobiernos dediquen los recursos necesarios tanto para la formación docente y la capacitación docente, como también para lo que es la infraestructura, de manera que se cuenten con espacios adecuados en el proceso de enseñanza-aprendizaje. Y también insistiría mucho en la preparación de los currículos con muchísima más participación, de manera que pues estos respondan no a las necesidades de unos cuantos, sino a la situación que vive tanto Colombia como Ecuador y pues a nivel de Latinoamérica, ¿no? Que cada quien pueda desarrollar este ejercicio y que se tenga en cuenta con mucha fuerza en este proceso la invitación que hace el Papa de insistir en el pacto educativo global como ellos insisten en el pacto educativo digital. Creo que los dos son importantísimos para poder desarrollar.
Gracias, Enrique. So let's listen to those from Asia. What would be your recommendations to your government?
Puedo empezar. Bueno, yo por mi parte, yo haría dos propuestas. La primera es en relación a lo que ya dije antes, es poner a la persona humana en el centro de la educación, no la economía o la política o otras materias. La persona humana, por un lado. Y por otro, totalmente distinto, y bien concreto, es aumentar el salario de los profesores, porque es la única manera de que tengamos más y mejores profesores.
Sí. Gracias. Alvin or Mauricio would like to add something, given your context?
Yeah, given context here in the strategies that we would like to propose to the government would be basically they have to invest in teacher education, teacher development. That would be of prime importance. The other strategy is implementing regular skill assessments and improving educational infrastructure, especially with subsidy for improvement of technology. And also we must ensure equitable access to education, quality education for every child, irrespective of their geographical location. This is in the, especially with reference to Northeast and other far-flung areas in India. Also, a few other following can make education system more effective. I think in higher education, increased parental involvement, partnership between the public and private sectors, and independent review and feedback mechanisms. This would be applicable for higher education in India.
Thank you, Mauricio.
The Philippines greater subsidy to education and also teacher quality and teacher education would be important in terms of policy. And also the serious implementation of internal and external quality assurance mechanism in the schools, whether public or private.
Thank you. How about Spain and Europe?
Okay, so talking about our situation nowadays in Spain, I think the best way to achieve every challenge described before, so the schools in Spain should apply the last educational law, just the options of this law in pedagogy. And perhaps also the politicians have to stop changing the law based only on political interests.
Yeah. Okay. And James, you might
Just
want
to add, probably the government could lessen the control on the curriculum in education in Spain. Lessen the control.
and give more control to the church. Okay, great. Thank you. So again, thank you for your contributions. Here we find, again, lots of convergences with regards to equity, inclusive education, and the renewal of curriculum, curriculum for life, life skills being given more importance, and the need for investment in education, capacitation of the teachers, teacher training or retraining. Yeah, so some interesting points came with regards raising the salary, even in Spain. Salaries up for teachers or what? That's sad. And then controlling the political interference that came up from Africa as well as from Spain as well. I believe that applies to other places as well. Thank you very much. Now we come to the fourth round. And this is very, very important because so far what we discussed were all the realities and what the government should do, but we don't have much control over there. Where we have control is what we can do as a congregation in our educational context. So this round is about, in the context of our educational institutions, how can we foster equity and relevance? So please suggest very doable, very practical policies and practices that we can implement in our institutions. Perhaps this also we can go continent-wise to save time. Somebody can lead and then others can add on. And again, this has to be very, very practical, doable for us. Let's begin with Latin America. What could be, you can just mention 2 or 3 practical things that you can do.
Acá en Brasil. Perdón, habla Marita.
No. Bueno, gracias, Claudio. Creo que nosotros tenemos que comprometernos firmemente y estamos comprometidos fuertemente con esta propuesta a la que nos invita Francisco, ¿no? Y lo hacemos también desde nuestra espiritualidad misionera, desde nuestra espiritualidad claretiana. Me parece importante hacer énfasis en la escucha de las comunidades de aprendizaje, poniendo en el centro a las personas, ¿no? De nuestro quehacer educativo. tener muy presente a la familia como centro del proceso de enseñanza-aprendizaje, acoger a los más vulnerables para construir esta sociedad más fraterna, también seguir trabajando en la construcción de un modelo pedagógico claretiano que nos comprometa a estudiar para encontrar otras formas de relacionarnos y para entender la política, la economía, la cultura. Trabajar por salvaguardar y cuidar la creación, a favor de la justicia, de la paz, del cuidado de la casa común, y hacerlo en sinodalidad, ¿no? Como una práctica muy nuestra, hacerlo en misión compartida y apuntando a construir un modelo de educación para la paz, una educación transformadora, ¿sí? Que humanice. Creo que nuestro foco tiene que estar ahí, y poder tomar esta narrativa que nos propone Francisco en el Pacto Educativo Global, ¿no? La solidaridad contra la indiferencia, la colaboración contra la competencia, la gratuidad contra el consumismo, la interioridad, el cultivo de la propia espiritualidad contra la apariencia, ¿no? Me parece que eso nos tiene que caracterizar y abrazar, ¿no? Y tomar también la metáfora del compás que nos trae el Padre Claret, arraigarnos en Jesús, abrir nuestro radio, nuestra circunferencia y estar atentos también a los clamores de nuestras comunidades, ¿sí? Prestando especial atención a las personas más vulnerables, a las mujeres, a los niños, a las familias, a aquellos que
Muy bien, María.
necesitan de nuestro cuidado.
Gracias, gracias. Enrique?
Apenas complemento a rica exposição de Marita. Sim? Nós outros em Brasil entendemos que precisamos investir y legar a las regiones, en nuestro caso, en el norte del país, onde la educación católica no es muy presente. Decidimos abrir colégios em zonas pouco ricas em nosso país, para que assim, com a educação, ela seja transformadora de los niños, pero também transformadora de la comunidade, para que o traço claretiano de eficácia evangelizadora seja muito presente. Outro ponto que entendemos como importante é a comunhão com a igreja local, de modo muito forte, as campanhas de la fraternidade propostas pela Conferência do Episcopado Brasileiro. Oportunamente, este ano é sobre a amizade social, sobre conseguimos superar as polaridades que há em nosso continente, em nosso país e nosso continente. Gracias.
Gracias. Enrique?
Yo agregaría estos elementos que me parecen importantes. Uno, que así como le exigimos a los estados, a los gobiernos, el pago y el salario adecuado a los docentes, nuestras instituciones educativas también tienen que tener salarios decentes para nuestros docentes, de manera que su trabajo sea significativo. Dos, me parece importante trabajar en torno al liderazgo. La congregación está trabajando el liderazgo discerniente y creo que es importante que nosotros también en las instituciones educativas trabajemos desde esta óptica, el liderazgo discerniente, el liderazgo transformacional, naturalmente desde la perspectiva de la sinodalidad, de manera que nuestros centros educativos puedan estar a la vanguardia. Y tercero, pues naturalmente trabajar en torno a las estructuras físicas, de manera que los espacios que tengamos en nuestros centros educativos puedan ir fortaleciéndose en cuanto a la equidad y a la pertinencia.
Muchas gracias, Enrique. I'll move on to
Spain.
Spain, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to share 4 things. Primero, hacer los alumnos protagonistas de su aprendizaje. Make the student as the center of their learning. Student-centered education. So we have to check our methodology if we are making our students as the center. Second, to make sure that values and competencies are inside the classroom. Whatever subject or course we're teaching, that values and competencies must be part of it. Third, that there should be clear training or retraining of the teachers, of all our teachers. And finally, monitoring. There should be monitored. Because if we will not monitor ourselves, we will go back to our old practice. And that's what is happening. Those are the 4 things. Thank you.
Thank you. Velasco?
Okay, so I'm thinking on the congregation and also in one of our schools. Talking about our global challenges, we, the Claretian missionaries, have to create a real and strong network among major organisms and schools. When we get to heaven, somebody will ask us, why didn't you put the global citizenship responsibility as one of your main guidelines in your book of values to build together a global brotherhood? Aren't we a global missionary congregation? Aren't we Catholic Church spread all over the world? Why we do not take care about it?
Thank you, Father Velasco. Very important point. Let's move on to África.
Sí, yo pienso que desde África y en nuestros contextos tendríamos que avanzar, además de la recuperación de los valores trascendentales, los valores de la familia y de la fraternidad que nos propone el Papa Francisco, y luego también los valores ecológicos. África, con su selva y mucho bosque, nos damos cuenta que hoy también estamos perdiendo el valor de lo que es el hermano selva, el hermano plantas, lo estamos perdiendo, estos valores, ¿no? La otra cosa es recuperar, desde África tenemos que recuperar la dignidad del docente. Alguien ha hablado de valores de los salarios dignos. Para que una persona tenga su dignidad, el docente en África, en nuestros contextos, pensamos que es importante que se le dé un salario digno. Y luego también que el maestro, el docente, va a tener como ser un referente, un modelo de transmisión de valores tanto culturales como académicos.
Gracias. Gracias, Kenneth. You want to add something? Very concrete things that we can actually implement.
Okay. I'm speaking from Nigeria. You know, my brother there speaks for Africa.
That's fine.
I'm speaking for Nigeria. All right. Within the context of our educational system, within our Claretian educational institutions, I have these proposals to make. That to foster equity, we have to make our schools affordable to all. Many a time our schools are not affordable to all, especially within this context, because of what the services we deliver or the services we render is not affordable. So if our schools can be affordable to as many as possible, it means that our schools must be open to international support.
So the point is taken. Affordability. What else you have to offer?
Yes, and then with regard to relevance, we have to design a unique Claretian curriculum model. This is what I think. If we are interested in education, then we should have a unique model. I believe the Jesuits have something like that, and it spreads across all parts of the world. There's a set of brothers, or the Mount LaSalle brothers, they also have something like that. It doesn't remove the context. It doesn't remove what's obtainable within the context, but it adds to it. And then it gives the congregation it gives her uniqueness. I think that is also important for us.
Thank you very much. We will hear from Asia, but before that, I would like to, we have nearly 20 observers listening to this conversation. I'm sure they also have several ideas, very creative ideas to contribute. Since we don't have time for them to share their ideas, they are most welcome to type in their suggestions. If you have any ideas, especially for us Claretian educators, please type in your ideas in the comment section, and Fathers Henry and Rohan would actually take care of them. We can insert that into the final document. So please contribute your ideas by typing it into the chat. Thank you. Let's move on to Asia. Alvin, Felix, Mauricio. Please be as brief and compact as possible. We are running short of time.
When we speak of, shall I start? Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
When we speak of equity and relevance, I'd like to mention here that when it comes to higher education, we are under the purview of regulatory authorities. So the recent development in higher education limits our role on several fronts, especially in admission as well.
Within the limits, what can we do as clinicians?
Even in admission right now, with regard to this common university entrance test, all that, there are eligibility criteria set by the government itself. However, we can try to make education accessible to all. For those who are already getting enrolled, we can think of financial assistance to those who are poor and those who are economically weak or socially weak. We can think of that as a possibility. When it comes to relevance, we can make our education relevant by prioritizing skill development, value education, collaborating with other institutions. So these are some of the possibilities.
Thank you. And Félix, ¿tiene algo para añadir?
Yo diría que así en concreto es priorizar la educación para la cooperación o para el diálogo sobre la educación para la competitividad o la excelencia académica.
Gracias. Yes, now Mauricio. Hello.
In our context, I think we have to expand our scholarships to ensure that Claretian education is made available to all or to many, especially the poor. And then we would have to ensure that formation programs, both for the students, for faculty and staff, and for families, would be continued and would be consistent according to the Claretian values, so that with that we can make ourselves relevant.
Thank you. So thank you very much, everybody, for your contribution. As I was listening, I was just thinking, we are again thinking from our local context, which is fine. But I believe we also have to think in terms of a congregation. In fact, from Africa, I think, Kenneth or Salustiano spoke about the relevance for a unique Claretian model. I think Kenneth spoke about it. Can we think of just like a global compact on education? Can we think of a global Claretian compact on education? Yeah, something we might want to think about. Instead of working in our own zones, can we think of a Claretian curriculum which incorporates universal values, even cooperation, exchange of students, exchange of teachers, faculty training, etc.? That would be something that should come out of this kind of a discussion. Yeah, something for us to think about. Sharing our resources. Again, one more point I would like to add. There was a time the Catholic Church was leading education. But sometimes I think, for example, very recently, where I am now, a school spent for their annual day, just 2-day function, annual day, they spend $60,000, which is a huge, huge money for a concept like this. So are we getting evangelized by the world, becoming like private institutions, making education a business, or are we evangelizing the world? Something for us to think about. Can Claretians do something with the Claretian Global Compact of Education in order to, contribute to this education, the vision that Francis has and the UN has? I believe we will end there. Thank you very much for your contributions. Yeah. Some members are typing in some ideas. Thank you very much. There was one more point summing up. Rohan, do we have time? Some 10 minutes more to continue? Or do we wind up?
Maybe a last word from each one, just 1 minute.
Yes, that's what we thought of. So before we conclude, we will have a summing up. Each participant, perhaps just a 30-second conclusion as to what you carry back home from this conversation. What exactly do you carry back home? 30 seconds per person. I shall call out persons. Alvin, what do you take home? What's your take home from this conversation? 30 seconds.
Yeah, what I've learned is globally we have several issues that are common, and particular places there are particular issues that affect the education ministry. But the congregation is well prepared to address these issues in particular locations. And we have guidelines, specific guidelines through these documents. And I think we can, given the limitations, especially as I mentioned, the limitations with in our country, in our scenario, in spite of those limitations, we can draw a lot of good things from these documents and implement them in our particular areas.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, Alvin. Let's move on to Felix. 30 segundos, Felix.
Well, really, I don't know what to say exactly. But
That's fine. That's fine.
No,
but it has. I just hope it has inspired some thoughts in you. We'll move on to Mauricio.
In our context, as Association of Claret Schools in the Philippines, we have already started to explore the Claretian pedagogy using La Fragua as our framework. So we would like to deepen that or explore further on that. And also we are strengthening our collaboration with all the other schools in terms of promoting Red Goes Green, which is our advocacy for the care for Mother Earth.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Salustiano.
No he entendido muy bien la pregunta. O sea, si se me puede...
Cualquier idea tú tienes de esta conversación, puedes compartir con nosotros. 30 segundos.
Ok. Yo creo que la conversación es interesante. Ahora que se está hablando del Pacto Educativo Global y de estos, y de la agenda de la ONU, entonces yo pienso que nosotros los claretianos, con esta conversación, también podemos avanzar en una pedagogía claretiana.
Okay, I think something happened to the net. Okay, thank you. Kenneth?
La educación. En la autobiografía es el padre para...
Do I have the floor now?
Yeah, go ahead. I think some issues are there.
All right. I believe that with this conversation, we are becoming very serious with the issue of education. And I also believe that the fruits of this conversation can lead to a unique Claretian model of education, which will help us in evangelizing and transforming the society.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marita, ¿algunas conclusiones de la conversación?
Me llevo dos compromisos, ¿sí? Uno, desde mi rol, seguir impulsando una educación que tenga como centro de la tarea lo que el estudiante hoy necesita aprender, ¿no? Para la vida, para formarse, para adquirir sus competencias, la mirada puesta en lo que necesita aprender, lo que tenemos que brindarle. No lo que necesitamos dar, sino lo que el estudiante necesita. Y por otro lado, también seguir impulsando un trabajo en red, ¿sí? Tanto desde esta reflexión que conocí a partir de lo que se va trabajando desde la ONU, como también el camino que venimos haciendo desde la congregación como familia claretiana, desde los congresos de educación, ¿no? Hace muchos años que hay un camino y estos congresos nos están llevando a pensar en este modelo pedagógico claretiano. Creo que tenemos que seguir caminando desde ahí y sentirnos parte también de lo que la familia claretiana viene trabajando.
Enrique, thank you. Enrique.
Dos cosas. La primera, creo que este es un espacio importante que nos acerca un poco a la realidad también congregacional y nos permite también dar aportes significativos desde nuestras experiencias al trabajo que realizan en la ONU. Y dos, creo que la educación como plataforma de evangelización nos está impulsando a seguir trabajando por una educación de calidad y de calidez que responda a las exigencias del momento actual. Así que creo que es importante y fundamental este espacio y todos los que hemos ido construyendo en los laicos educadores claretianos para ir fortaleciendo más la pedagogía claretiana y para ir fortaleciendo el trabajo desde y para la educación.
Gracias. Claudio.
Fica para nós outros sentimento de gratidão, de gratitude, por fazermos parte de uma família claretiana que tem como educação profetismo de la lucha pelos direitos de los niños, pela transformação social de nossas escolas, de nossos entornos. Gracias.
André, gracias André. ¿Tienes algo para compartir?
Sí, también como dice Padre Claudio, para nosotros de Brasil, aquí en América, es un privilegio poder estar juntos a nosotros y poder discutir la educación con vistas al Pacto Educativo Global, a la ONU, y poder ter un espacio de cambio y transformación en la educación como un todo. Entonces, muchas gracias y les estimo a todos.
A ti. Miguel Ángel.
So I pick up 3 items. First of all, to reinforce the implementation of the Global Compact on Education in our 7 schools in the province, to promote the second interchange between Africa Santiago for education, or for the educators, of course, in connection with the General Prefect of Apostolate, and in the third item, I see that it's possible to think about a global compact for CMF. Really interesting.
Let's hope so. And finally, James Castle, you have the last word.
Yes, I think my takeaway for this, it's for us to revisit once again our direction as a Claretian educator. What kind of education do we really want to offer to others as Claretians? What makes us Claretian educators? What distinguishes us? What is the kind of mark that we want? I think it's about time that we make or try to review our direction and our vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate everybody's input. Thanks a lot. And you made my job also easy by being very, very, precise in your sharings. By the way, I would like to especially thank Alex. Alex has been behind the scene doing the translation to English and Spanish. So thank you very much, Alex, for your contribution, for your assistance. And I would like to invite now Henry. Henry is our representative to the UN. And Henry, for your final words.
Thank you,
also,
Paul.
I would also like to thank all those observers. Some of them have actually put in a lot of suggestions. Very good. I hope Rohan has copied them already. Thank you. Henry, over to you.
Okay. Right. I want to say thank you, all of you, for participating. We appreciate your contribution. Thank you to Father Paul for moderating this conversation. Thank you, Father Alex, for the interpreter service. This conversation for us, Claretian team at the UN, is a begin process with you. You have a long experience in the education area. You made different tasks, different action. You have the long experience in the meeting, the congregation meeting. Marita talked about the congregation meeting about the education. This is a good way for us. We hope to count of your contribution. The discussion that are taking place at UN require your contribution, your experience. You can allow us to see the reality because you say you know what happened in the grassroots. You know what happened in the school, in this education institution. But sometimes when the UN write the declaration, is only in the paper, but we need confront this reality. You are this possibility. It is necessary to continue to consolidate our work together in order to have a prophetic voice at UN. Pope Francis invite us to continue to participate and enrich the global compact education. You think about this today. We face many challenges, and it is necessary to work together to continue responding and proposing action that we transform the education process. At time, you as an area of education have met at the global level, and the conference, it is important to continue this conversation on the transformation of education at the provincial level, at the regional level, and the congressional level. So thank you so much for this opportunity, for your contribution. Thank you, Paul. Thank Alex. Thank Rohan. Thank you, all of you. Thank you for the people who is interested for this conversation. Thank you so much.
Henry, one moment. If all the participants can, just scan or type and send the suggestions that you have made, whatever you contributed to Henry or Rohan, that would be very helpful for them. Of course, they have recorded the session, but it's also good to have some material. So whatever you have written down, some of you are reading from the prepared paper, which is very good. Please pass on to Rohan. Also, I hope this also has inspired us to read these documents in depth. UN and the Pope Francis and the church documents, everything more in depth for us to be informed. Thank you.
Just one word. Maybe after the summit of the future, we can come back and see how we can take this the recommendation of the UN back to the congregation, to take and transform our education in our schools and in our educational institutions. We'll come back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Gracias.
Bye-bye.
Muchas gracias. por el
Bye
espacio.
bye. Thank you for
Gracias.
coming.
Gracias.
Thank you for
Wow.
participating today.
Transforming Education, a Claretian conversation in preparation for the United Nations Summit of the Future on September 2024. Moderator Paulson Veluyanor, Director Sannyasa India. Special thanks to Pedro Belderrame, General Prefect of Apostolate.
Panelists Alwyn Mendoz, Northeast India, ASCLA. Felix Martinez, East Asia, ASCLA. Mauricio Ulep. Joel Gallardo, ASCLA. Salustiano Oyono. Padre Chifre, ASLA. Kenneth Opara Semefomeo, Nigeria East, ACLA. Marita Lineker, San Jose del Sur, MICLA. Claudio Bastos, Brazil, MICLA. Enrique Aponte, Colombia, Ecuador, MICLA. Miguel Angel Velasco, Santiago. Eclas, James Castro, Fatima, Eclas.
Thanks to all the observers' participation during this conversation. Interpretation was provided by Alex Gaitan, SOMI USA Canada. This conversation is organized by the Claretian team at the United Nations, New York. Rohan Dominic and Henry Ramirez.